Today, prosecutors made DNA the key focus of testimony in the capital murder trial of Clayton Foreman. Day 6 of testimony has just wrapped up. This is a story 12 News has followed for months, years, and as the trial continues, for days. Today, Foreman's defense attorney worked hard to challenge the prosecution's DNA evidence in the 1995 murder of Mary Catherine Edwards. 12 News anchor Jordan Williams is live tonight breaking down what the defense is claiming tonight. Jordan.
Brenda, good evening. Clayton Foreman's defense attorney pressed a DPS crime lab supervisor from Houston. Basically, he asked why certain samples of DNA were not tested more to see if more suspects or more people's DNA could be linked to the crime scene. That crime scene back in January 14th, 1995, when Mary Catherine Edwards was killed at her West End townhome. At the time, DNA was in its infancy, and there were limits to what testing could reveal. In 2021, investigators turned to a Houston lab to do additional testing and come up with a DNA profile of the suspect. Then came the genetic genealogy and the family tree that led law enforcement to Clayton Foreman. The Texas DPS crime lab did more testing in 2023 to compare the DNA from the crime scene with known DNA from Foreman. Today, defense attorney Tom Burbank cross-examined the DPS supervisor Tanya Dean. Burbank questioned the presence of an unknown male's DNA.
There's absolutely somebody else's DNA there.
Right, and at any time where you requested now the and to try to determine who the other male contributor was.
No.
And there again, you can't tell the time frame of when those were deposited.
That's correct, I cannot. The bottom line is
Dean said there were a number of plausible explanations. The prosecution suggested it could have come from the various people who handled the samples through the years. They said on other key samples, though, there's very little doubt.
the probability of obtaining this mixture profile if the DNA came from Mary Catherine Edwards and Clayton Foreman is 461 septillion times greater than the probability of obtaining this profile if the DNA came from Mary Catherine Edwards and one unrelated unknown individual.
Then the jurors were excused for the day. The prosecution wants to present testimony from a woman that Foreman was convicted of sexually assaulting way back in 1981, and testimony from another woman who says Foreman came to her apartment and held her at gunpoint in 1986. Both women went to high school with him. The prosecution says the evidence will show that Foreman had, quote, motive, opportunity, and intent to kill Edwards, and that he had a signature behavior. Now, the judge has to make a ruling based on what is known as the Texas Rules of Criminal Evidence, and a key issue is whether the evidence that they might hear from those women's testimony could produce what's known as undue prejudice. Put another way, if the jury hears from both of these women, will that be the only thing that they remember about all the testimony they've heard in this now 2-week trial? The judge set to rule tomorrow, 9 in the morning. We will be here. For now, we're live at the Jefferson County Courthouse. Jordan Williams, 12 News at 6.
All right, thanks for following that for us, Jordan. And you can find our extensive trial coverage on our website. Simply go to 12newsnow.com.